Now, as we just heard in that story, dating is becoming increasingly expensive for single people. Talk about some of the shifts that we are seeing in the industry, not just the cost involved, but are more couples kind of going out Dutch nowadays as well?
We are hearing more about that, especially among Gen Zers. It's really interesting how couples manage their finances. It's a little different maybe if you're on a first or second date versus if you're more established. But we're seeing that about 1 in 4 couples are keeping their money completely separate, and a little over a third are completely combining it. So that actually leaves another more than a third that are doing something in between. So they're doing the whole yours, mine, and ours thing,
Mm,
keeping some money together, and then also having some for their own purposes, which some people like because it gives you a little more independence. The other person's not looking over your shoulder on everything. Some of what's going on here is also wrapped up in broader societal trends. People are getting married
right.
later, they're having kids later. There have been a lot of shifts, and many of them do have to do with finance. People are
Yeah.
worried about the cost of housing, the cost of childcare, the cost of student loans. The traditional milestones are getting pushed back for many.
It's interesting too because a graphic earlier that I saw showed that single people, how can I phrase this delicately? People who are in a relationship spend thousands more a year in a relationship than singles do. Singles able to keep more money in their pocket. Is that impacting the role of romance, finding love, rather than, I guess, spending more money?
Well, we are seeing people delaying, a lot of the coupling up and the traditional milestones. We're hearing fewer people are going on dates, perhaps because it's expensive, perhaps because of other things. The rise of social media has introduced some other social outlets. We're also hearing that politics are playing a role because if people don't agree politically, they may not be as compatible as a couple. We're actually hearing that's a reason why some people are delaying being in relationships.
Right.
It is very interesting to see how this has shifted over time, and it does have ramifications for just the way people spend, whether it's restaurants or gifts or other things. Although, all that said, romance is not dead. The
Sure.
National Retail Federation says that Valentine's Day spending this year is expected to be an all time record. Some of that is because everything costs more, of course, but there is also evidence that people are spending more, even above the inflation rate. The average spending is about $200 a person this year. That's up 6.5% from last year. So that's a pretty big jump, actually.
Yeah, indeed, and certainly a lot of people. I mean, no one wants to be alone or worried about being alone at the end of the day. So let's talk about these dating apps that are out there, because our very fine tech reporter out in San Francisco did a story not terribly long ago that kind of said that these dating apps are kind of designed to separate people from their wallets. There's always extra money to do this, extra money to do that, and it just kind of prolongs the effort to find somebody. Are these dating apps working?
They are for some, but it can be expensive. Just the whole cost of dating, being on the app potentially, but also the costs of meals and entertainment. And I saw a study that the average date was something like $200. I mean, that's taking a big bite out of your budget. Of course, there are other options. You could plan a lower cost date. But you think about just people being squeezed from all sides. And we know that inflation has continued to be a big deal. Even as the inflation rate has come down, prices have remained high. They're still
Yeah.
growing, they're just not growing as fast as they were a couple of years ago. Affordability is a key concern, and especially among people in the dating pool. A lot of 20 and 30 somethings. These are people that are having a hard time getting established. They still have student loans, they're
Sure.
dealing with high housing costs. It's expensive to be a young adult these days, and that is having some ramifications for the dating market.
Yeah, and you talked about like inflation, shelter. Those are the two biggest expenses affecting people right now. And on top of that, a survey came out earlier in the week that Americans are increasingly using debt and flexible payment plans to fund their romantic lives, and basically dating on layaway, if you will. Do you find that some people are setting up potential couples and current singletons for economic issues?
Well, we are seeing that because people have dipped into savings, they've taken on debt. A lot of the low-hanging fruit has been gone the past few years. That time a few years ago when people were saving more and paying down debt during the pandemic, I mean, that's long gone at this point. People have depleted savings. We have record amounts of credit card debt. So that has to spill over, whether it's directly or indirectly, into other parts of your financial life. I thought it was interesting what your reporter was saying in that package about the high percentage of people that are moving in maybe earlier than they otherwise would have just to save money. And it's true because you have two people in a household and it is definitely cheaper than each having your own studio or one bedroom kind of apartment.
Sure.
So it is something that finances are affecting the way people are living and just some of the choices they're making with respect to housing and trying to defray that. So whether you're living with a romantic partner or other roommates, it's hard to go it on your own,
Yeah.
especially with as high as these housing costs have been.